a man was reported dead. And in the same hours, a country felt the heat. Highways shut down, vehicles burned, cities were squeezed into silence. In Mexico, sometimes a death is not just a death, sometimes it's a signal. And for years, that signal was known by a single name, El Mencho. In this documentary, we're telling the story of how a cartel stopped being just an organization and became a system that speaks through headlines, speaks at the gene, but grows in the shadows. CJNG, the Jalisco New Generation Cartel. And the darkest question is this: when a leader dies, does fear end, or does real fear begin right then? Now let's go back to the beginning. CJNG's origins took shape as the criminal balance of power in western Mexico began to break. By the late 2000s around Jalisco, people were already talking about the fragmentation of networks linked to the Sinaloa cartel and a structure known as the Milenio Group. And when an authority vacuum appears, the criminal world never leaves it empty. One of the critical turning points that widened that vacuum was the death of Ignacio Nacho Coronel, one of Sinaloa's most powerful figures in the region, killed in an operation in 2010. His death shook western Mexico's underworld. Old alliances gave way to leadership fights. Around the same time, after the capture of Oscar Orlando Nava Valencia, another Milenio-linked figure, fragmentation accelerated and different factions emerged. Names like La Resistencia were mentioned, while on the other side, a core group was growing, the group that would eventually become CJNG. CJNG did not step onto the stage quietly. On the contrary, it was loud, theatrical, and message-driven. In its early phase, the group presented itself to the public behind a different mask: Los Mata Zetas, Zetas hunters. They marketed themselves as a kind of clean-up force against Los Zetas. It was propaganda, creating legitimacy with the line, "We don't touch innocents, our target is them." And by 2011, one of the most brutal incidents that pushed CJNG into global headlines took place. In Veracruz, 35 bodies were found inside 2 trucks. The messages left behind suggested a declaration of control. This was CJNG shouting, "We're here." But the most dangerous part of a dark order is this: an organization can speak with 2 faces at the same time. One face says, "We bring order." The other defines what order means through fire. CJNG's growth model was different from the classic cartel story. It didn't move like a street gang, it moved like a network. Cells, local bosses, armed units, financial channels, propaganda crews. Because this wasn't only about drugs, this was about territory. And in Mexico, territory doesn't just mean land. Territory means roads, ports, border routes, local police, local politics, sometimes entire neighborhoods. Territory is oxygen. And CJNG fought for oxygen using methods that felt modern, almost military. One of the most chilling methods, increasingly associated with CJNG over the years, was the tactic of locking down the country. Block the highway, set a truck on fire, seal the city entrances with barricades, amplify panic. This violence is not random, it is a strategy. When the state launches an operation, the cartel doesn't only defend a hideout, it attacks the functioning of the state itself. Because if the road is blocked, reinforcements arrive late, ambulances arrive late, commerce stops. Normal life is paralyzed, and panic is a weapon. Major breaking points in CJNG's history, especially clashes with security forces, showed again and again how this strategy works. 2015 was remembered as one of the hardest periods of CJNG's open challenge to the state. Attacks and ambushes in Jalisco, followed by massive security operations. And that same year, the events of May 1st, 2015, when CJNG was reported to have attacked a military helicopter and triggered chaos with barricades across the country, pushed CJNG from just a cartel into the category of a major internal security threat. Over time, another dark detail grew inside CJNG's story: family. The man at the top, Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes, El Mencho, stayed away from the public eye for years. Some sources report that he once worked as a police officer, later entered the criminal world, was imprisoned in the United States for drug-related crimes, and then deported. But what made him different wasn't only that he hid. What made him different was that he built the upper layer of the organization like a closed ring of trust. And among the most critical parts of that ring was a financial network tied to El Mencho through family connections, a structure known as Los Cuinis, linked in many analyses to CJNG, has been described as one of the cartel's financial arteries. Over the years, people around El Mencho were targeted one by one: the arrest of his wife Rosalinda Gonzalez Valencia, the extradition of his son known as El Menchito to the United States, the capture of his brother often referred to as Tony Montana. These moves were the state tightening the circle, when it couldn't reach the king directly. And still, El Mencho could not be captured for years. The United States offering a reward of up to $15 million for information leading to his capture showed just how high value a target he was considered. Until 2026, February the 22nd, 2026. It was reported that an operation aimed at capturing El Mencho was carried out in the mountainous area near Tapalpa in the state of Jalisco, and that the operation turned into a firefight. Then many major international outlets, including AP and Reuters, reported that El Mencho died from injuries sustained in that operation, and the death report triggered another reality, like someone pressed a button: retaliation. According to the reports, cartel-linked groups burned vehicles, blocked roads, and locked down cities across multiple states. At least 14 people were reported killed in the violence. These scenes repeated the message CJNG has used for years. A leader can go, but the power to make you pay remains. And at that point, the dark question returns: what happens when a king dies? Most people assume it's over, but in the cartel world, sometimes the most dangerous period begins: when the throne is empty. Because a power vacuum doesn't produce peace. It produces competition. It produces factions. It produces revenge. In a network-structured organization like CJNG, the leader's disappearance opens 3 roads. The first road: continuity. A successor is already prepared and the system keeps running. The second road: fragmentation. Cells break away and violence becomes unpredictable. The third road: war. Rivals test weakness, territory changes hands, and the public pays the price. As Reuters also pointed out, analysts have warned of fractures inside CJNG and the risk of prolonged violence after El Mencho's death. And the dark truth is this: CJNG is not defined only by what it sells, but also by what it takes. It takes safety. It takes trust. It takes the freedom to drive at night without fear. It takes the very idea of a normal life. That is the real tax of cartel power. So how did El Mencho stay alive for so long? Because walls didn't protect him. People did. Loyalty, fear, money, and silence. And in some parts of Mexico, silence is not a choice. It's a survival method. That's why El Mencho's death is not, by itself, the end of the story. It is a turning point. One name is gone, but a machine remains. Roots remain. Revenue streams remain. Fear networks remain. And those networks, until they find a new center, often become even more aggressive. In the end, this documentary doesn't leave you with one single certain answer, but it leaves you with one certain warning. Sometimes the darkest moment is not when the king is alive. It begins when the king is gone, and everyone reaches for the crown. Because some names die, but what they built can outlive them. And if a king truly fell in Tapalpa, then a new page may already be opening in